Hello and welcome back to the next episode of the Shark Source podcast. I'm your host, Danny Parsons, joined again by Shaden Shergill. And before we get started, I just want to say that you might have guessed this already, but the Shark Source podcast doesn't really fit. The name does not fit the podcast because I really don't talk about the Sharks that much more than I do any other team. So I'm thinking I'm going to rebrand to a more neutral name that has to do with the NHL in general. So if you have any suggestions, leave it in the comments. I should have the new name by the next podcast, but this will still be the Shark Source podcast this episode, and we got a lot to talk about. So we'll be covering some recent trades, especially the Brian Boyle trade, playoff picture currently, who gets in, who doesn't. Well, I'm going to talk about the Blues. I forgot to mention this before, but the Blues who have just won 9 straight. It's completely crazy. We'll talk about the Sharks and Oilers, trade deadline, 3 players on our team, Sharks and Oilers, who might be dealt, and Shaden's got a rant prepared on Edmonton. I'm excited for that. So let's just jump right in. So we'll first start with the Brian Boyle trade. This was not too recent. It was occurred a few days before this. But what do you think about this trade?
Well, first of all, this means that New Jersey's going to sell. I was surprised how Boyle got a second-round pick. I think he's been decent, but he only has 19 points this season. I don't think he's worthy of a second, but he's a good piece of action national, especially since we don't know what's going to happen to Austin Watson. But I like this move for because they add more center depth, and I feel like they have another move to me. But I think that a second might be a bit too high, but Nationals is a cup contender, so they can move a second round pick for a guy that had 20 points.
Yeah, I agree. I think a second is too high, especially because he only has 20 points. Now, he did play on the Devils, who this year have just not been good. They can't get it together for whatever reason. But, yeah, I still feel like a second-round pick for that is too high. Now, Boyle isn't just – he's more than his points, He's a great leadership, can win face-offs, a big guy, 6'6", 245 pounds. So definitely more than just his point-producing ability. But still, I do think that price is too high. But we'll see. The Predators are all in, and they should be. And, they have been lacking scoring. I think that is their biggest problem as a team. So we'll see how that works out. Okay, so do you had any other trades, or were they not major enough?
Well, I guess I can maybe discuss the past 2 trades Edmonton made over the weekend.
Yeah, let's hear them.
So Friday, I think it was exactly 10 after the Carolina game, Edmonton shipped off Cam Talbot to the Flyers for Anthony Stolarz. I like this trade for a couple of reasons. First of all, Cam Talbot was a pending UFA. You need a trade for something because he wasn't going to come back. And, we got a younger goaltender in the end that still has some upside. I know Stolarz has some injury issues, especially with his knee, but he's still a decent goaltender. He's putting up okay stats, right? And he's cheap. Right? He's not going to cost you over $1 million, whereas Talbot was costing Edmonton around $4 million. He shed around $3.5 million cap, which helps Edmonton and Sekera, who's going to get activated off LTIR soon. And, you just get a younger asset, and that's what Edmonton needs to do. And I don't know why lots of Edmonton fans complain about this deal, because honestly, I like it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't see really any reason why, if you're Philadelphia, you do this. I mean, Stolarz has higher save percentage, is younger, and is not a UFA. So maybe they want to clear cap, but I don't really understand it. Maybe they think Talbot can give Hart some mentorship or something, but he's not that experienced, Talbot. I mean, he's older. So I really don't understand this from the Flyers' perspective. From the Oilers, I guess I would say it's a win for sure. And we're gonna, like you said, they're gonna lose Talbot for nothing. The fact that they got something for him, I mean, there you go. That's all you need. And then their second trade, sending Ryan Spooner to the Canucks for Sam Gagner. We sort of disagreed on this one. So tell me why you think this was a win for the Oilers.
Just one thing, I just want to add into the Stolarz thing that Philly still has Brian Elliott, so I wonder what they're going to do with him. And for Talbot, he trains with Hart in the offseason, so I guess it makes sense from the Flyers, but not really. Now for the Gagne trade. The reason, I kind of took a bat because a lot of people are targeting me saying, how does Edmonton win this trade? I get that both are at the same cap hit and both are in the AHL, but you got to realize that even when Gagne was called in the AHL, in 7 games, he still had 3 points, and he still looked decent out there, whereas Spooner had 5 and 30. And, Gagne, I don't think he's that bad. I do think that, I wouldn't say change senior because he has played in Edmonton before, but, for Gagne, he can still produce. He had a 35-point season on the bad Canucks team. It's just, I'm just surprised how somehow Edmonton got out of that Spooner contract, which was deemed untradeable, and he still got an asset that can play in the NHL. And if he doesn't produce, it didn't really cost too much. So I wouldn't say Edmonton has to win, for long term, but, if Gagne can, keep up with the NHL and he can play center, can help on the second power play, it helps Edmonton. And, the Canucks are dealing with injuries of Virtanen and Sutter, so they need someone to fill that gap. But, after what's been happening this season, I don't know if he's an NHL player right now.
Yeah, I think the contract is probably the biggest part of that trade to get rid of $4 million per. I mean, there's really no excuse if you're getting paid that much to only have 5 points in 41 games. I actually thought Gagne was a lot older. I looked it up. He's only 29. I mean, I remember him from really long time ago. He used to be a big star. And then I don't know what happened with him, but yeah, I still think he's got a lot of potential, and he had a pretty good year last year. But I also think Spooner does too. Now, this year he's played, just horrendously. It's unbelievable how badly he's played. But last year, after he got traded to the Rangers, had 16 points in 20 games. And most of those points were assists. So I feel like if you put him with the right players, maybe he can do something, in Vancouver, maybe put him with Besser, or Horvat, see what happens. But yeah, we'll see. It could work out, could not. It's a bit too early to tell, but I definitely think the most important thing was getting rid of his cap hit for Edmonton. So
for me, the surprising thing is because in the AHL, Edmonton's AHL Bakersfield has won 15 straight, which is
unbelievable, just
incredible. They're hot right now. Spooner can't really even crack the lineup. He's played 6 games. He had 5 points under, but he's been scratched in some of those contests. And the fact that you're scratched at an AHL team and you're still getting paid that much is still a bad sign.
Yeah, for sure. But you see that happen with a lot of players. Cliff Pu, if you remember, he was the biggest piece in that Skinner trade. He's in the ECHL right now. Now, to be fair, the Checkers are the best team in the AHL by points, but remember, point percentage is actually more important. But anyway, so he couldn't crack that lineup. But that doesn't mean he's bad. So sometimes they just don't fit in with the system of the coach or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Spooner, he's got to figure it out, but at least he's gonna get paid a lot to figure it out. Okay, I think we'll move on from that. So we're gonna look at the playoff picture right now. It's President's Day at the time of the recording. Most teams have played just under 60 games or slightly over 60 games. So we really have not that much long to go. Trade deadline is a week from now, and most teams have 20-something games left. So I'm going to just read out the playoff picture, and then we'll go into some analysis. So starting in the Pacific Division, Calgary leads with 77 points and 58 games played. San Jose right behind them, 77 points, 1 extra game played. Then Vegas, a big drop, 9 points behind at 68 points with 60 games played. And then Central Division, Winnipeg, 76 and 59 games. Nashville, 73 and 61. And the red-hot St. Louis Blues, 67 points in 58 games. Wild card, we got Dallas with 63 points in 58 games, and Minnesota hanging on by a thread, 60 points in 59 games, and Vancouver just outside, 59 points in 60 games. And then we got a logjam. Arizona, Colorado, Chicago, all with 57 points and in 58, 58, and 59 games respectively. And Anaheim potentially could still make the playoffs, 58. Even the Oilers and Kings, 53, 52. The West, even the worst team in the West, is still only 8 points out with the game in hand. So it's really much closer than it seems.
But should a team with a minus 54 goal differential in Anaheim even deserve to get in the playoffs?
Yeah, that's the question. But again, they say this a lot about wins or goals. They don't ask how, they ask how many. And if they get enough, then that's all that matters. So now, does it mean that they'll do anything in the playoffs? Probably not. I mean, it's unlikely that a team with that few points could even match up against the Flames, Sharks, or Jets. But every year it happens. Nashville in 2017 had, I think, 20-something less points than Chicago, and they swept them. So you never know. But anyway, let's quickly go through the East. Islanders have 76 points in 58 games, leading the Metropolitan Division. Then Washington, 71 points in 59 games. Columbus, 69 nice points in 57 games. Then in the Atlantic, Tampa completely blowing out the next closest team by just a huge margin. I'm not going to do the math in my head, but 92 points in 59 games. Then Boston, 76-59. Toronto, 75-58. Wild cards, Pittsburgh, 69 in 59. Montreal, 69 in 59. Carolina is right behind them, 68 and 59. Then you got other teams who could potentially make the playoffs. Buffalo, Phillies, both 63 points. Then you got Florida, New York, New Jersey, Detroit, and Ottawa. And I just want to point out Ottawa, 49 points. Now in the West, the last place team is out of the playoffs by only 8 points. Ottawa is out of the playoffs by 20 points. So it really shows that the East is a lot more close at the top and far out at the bottom, whereas the West, the top is really up high and the bottom is really far out, and the middle is close. So just that's how the playoffs work. So what are your thoughts on the current picture? Who gets in? Who goes out?
So I guess I'll start from West. My opinion, I think the top 7 teams are safe because honestly, I was on pace for a 90 point. That's gonna get them to the playoffs. Even if they start struggling, Ben Bishop's injured now, so I guess that could be kind of an excuse for their failing. Minnesota, just against Philly, they blew a 4-1 lead. They did the same thing to Detroit, and they did the same thing to the Devils, which was Corey Schneider's first win in 14 months, even though he didn't even start that game. The thing about Minnesota is, yes, Dumba has been out since December. Yes, Kobe's out for the rest of the season, but that doesn't matter. You still have guys like Suter, Spurgeon, and Brodin on the back end, and with them, that's still an amazing defense core. Your forward core is still solid. I'm just wondering if they still had Niederreiter, maybe it would have been better, but here's the thing. The Wild have 4 games before the trade deadline, right? Tomorrow, they're against the Ducks, which, could they win? I could see them winning that, right? Then they have the Rangers and the Red Wings back to back. If you can easily beat a Red Wings team, then you're against the Blues, who are red hot, right? So, what if, say you win, if the Minnesota Wild win 3 out of the next 4 games, they get 6 points, they should be okay for the playoffs, but they can't, they need to win at least 3 of these games. Otherwise, I don't think they're going to make it. Because this is a good team with some injury issues, yes. But, you can't blow leads 4-1 against teams like Philly or the Wings, right? Even the Devils. So that's my thing about the Wild. So I do think they they get in. If if this it's a big week for them, in my opinion.
Yeah, here's the thing about the Wild. I think they are in one of the worst situations you can be in as a hockey team because they need to rebuild, but they can't because really rebuilding. The reason I say they need to rebuild, a lot of people would say, why would they need to rebuild? They got a pretty good core. The reason I think they need to rebuild is there's no point in making the playoffs and going out in the first round every year. There's just no point. I mean, you're just sacrificing your future and you're, giving your fans all this false hope for really nothing. I would say you want to be where the Leafs are, where they do a rebuild. Now, it took them a long time to actually commit to rebuild, but you want to do a real rebuild and then come out and be good. It's not like other sports where rebuilds might not work and stuff. In hockey, if you don't have Chiarelli as your GM, usually rebuilds work pretty well. So they can't rebuild though because of the Parise and Suter contracts. Really, those contracts which go until 2024, 25. I mean that's so. Since they can't rebuild, I think they gotta somehow find a way to get this current team to a good team. Now the Sharks were able to do that. They were actually pretty similar to the Minnesota last year, and the Sharks bought at the deadline and then made some moves in in the offseason to get Carlson. So I think the Wild have to do that. You got to start. You have all your first round picks for the next 3 years. You have some young guys. I think it's time for the Wild to start making some trades and really improving themselves this deadline because they, and also I just want to say Devin Dubnyk, I'd be worried about him if I was a Wild fan. Only a .909 save percentage, which is okay by most goalie standards, but not by his. So we'll see where that goes.
So who do you think gets into the West End? Like as the last ball for the season?
It's really tough. I guess I would say probably I think Chicago, because I think Chicago has the best. I think they're the best run team out of those. I think Minnesota is just sort of. I don't think they're going to make any moves at the deadline, and I really don't trust them. I just don't. I think they're too inconsistent. As much as I would love Arizona to make it, I also don't trust them. I don't think they have a very good roster, especially with all the injured players. Colorado, I could see it happening, but something's wrong with them. I think they might. Coach Bednar might get fired this offseason because they should be doing a lot better. Also, they're a one-line team. Chicago, with Kane on fire right now, with Delia is actually a decent goalie. I think they're going to get in.
The thing about Arizona is, like, as you said, that they have so many injuries. I think the weird thing is look at them. They have one of the best players in the world, if not the best player in the world, and Connor McDavid, and they're that low in the standings. And the Coyotes, who are missing half the roster, probably for the entire season due to injuries, are close to a playoff spot. I wouldn't bet next season. I wouldn't put against me that next season that the Coyotes can make the playoffs because if they're that close, in a weak conference, but missing half their players to injuries, and still being able to compete in close to playoff spot, that's I don't know. I give respect to the Coyotes there.
Yeah, I don't know. The Oilers. It's just I don't get it. It's just unbelievable how many misses they can make. It looks like even though I do think it's too early to trade Puljujarvi, just like the Coyotes were too early to trade Strome. But I definitely think that while it's too early to do anything now, you could still call him a waste of a pick just based on the other guys that were available. At fourth overall, and I just don't understand how they can be this bad. And we'll get into that in depth later. But Shaden, so I think who did you say you thought was getting in?
I say the Wild because I'll say it again because they're against the Ducks on Tuesday. Like I get the Ducks won 2 in a row, but Minnesota needs to win that game. they have a back-to-back against New York and Detroit.
Yeah.
You can probably beat Detroit, and you beat New York. Hey, that's 3 wins out of 4. Maybe get a point against the Blues. That's 7 out of 8 points. Like,
Yeah.
that will get them to 67 points in 64 games. Like that'll get you to the playoffs. So it's a huge lead for Minnesota. If you get only 6 points in these next 4 games, I say you make it. The West is done, and those top 8 teams make it.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely possible it could happen. I think even if that does happen, I don't think Minnesota's going to make it, just because I really don't think they're as good of a team as they once were. But we'll see how it goes. Also, I should mention Vancouver is only 1 point out. I don't trust them whatsoever. I mean, they had a really close game against the Sharks. I can promise you that was not because the Canucks are a good team. The Sharks had one of their worst games ever on Saturday night, and Vancouver was very lucky to make it so close. Constant turnovers by Burns caused some of their goals. Erik Karlsson going below the red line. I'm talking about the goal line here. So completely not playing his position. It was just, even though Jones played well, the 2 goals were very weak. So I think the 7-2 game was a much better indication of who Vancouver is than that game against the Sharks. I really don't think Vancouver has any chance of making the playoffs.
Well, I think for that 7-2 game, most of the reason why I think they also won that game is because, first of all, I think it was DiPietro's first game in, right? And I think he was like only 19 or 20. So I say Stabs got most of their goals, but also the Vancouver's offense was like garbage. Like Hutton was terrible that game. So it can go either way, but Vancouver didn't look good in that game.
Yeah,
that's one point around DiPietro.
Yeah, DiPietro was bad, no question. But the Sharks did dominate that game, regardless. Vancouver just didn't have much going. And I think that, I don't think DiPietro is good right now. He wasn't ready, but I still don't think the Canucks are a playoff team. And I just want to say quickly, because I don't think I'll be talking about the Sharks too much, but I think they need to. I think Jones has been overplayed too much, but Dell sucks, so it's like, what do you do? If we had Bebo up, I would say play, or even Coronel, I would say play those guys more, but since we have Dell, it's like, I guess we should be playing Dell more just so Jones can get some rest, but anytime you play Dell, it's pretty much a loss, so I'm not sure. We'll go to the East in a second. Just let's quickly list out the teams you think are going to win the division, how they'll stack up. So in the West, I still think it's going to be Nashville, Winnipeg, St. Louis, which, funny enough, that was my picks at the beginning of the year for that division, and I think that's how it's going to finish. And in the Pacific, I think it's going to be San Jose, Calgary, Vegas. I did not have Calgary in at the beginning of the year, but I think they'll finish second. What about you?
For me, I say Winnipeg finished number 1. Now, I'm going to have a hard time for number 2 because St. Louis is 6 points out behind Nashville, but they played 3 less games. Yeah. Meaning, if they win those 3 next games, they tie with Nashville. So, with the run the Blues have been on in the amazing year Jordan Binnington has been
playing.
Yeah, sorry. It could go either way. I probably have Nashville at number 2 though. St. Louis at number 3, but I think they're going to be close at the end.
Yeah, I think that's St. Louis. They're one of the best stories in hockey, and it seems like actually Jake Allen has played better since Binnington came. So what I think, Jake Allen, it seems like he's really good when he isn't playing 50. He's better as a 40 as a split goalie. He can't really start most of your games, but he's a really good backup / no backup, just even split goalie. But it looks like Binnington will play their playoff games if they make the playoffs, if he keeps playing like this. So
do you think he should be considered for the Calder?
No, because I think it's too early. I definitely think Hart could be considered for the Calder. And I think Hart could even be considered for the Hart, because if Hart is most valuable to your team, I mean, I don't think anyone's been more valuable to their team than Hart. And also, obviously, Vezina too. But we'll see. I mean, again, very early to say. So we'll just deal with that later. Now let's go to the East. Looking at the wild card, who do you think gets in?
This is tough because, you have to decide between three teams who play the same amount of games, and one of those teams are 1 point behind. Now, just for Carolina, I guess that Ferland trade is still bad. That Skinner trade is still bad. Just, say if they kept them, would this team be higher up in the standings, you think, or no?
Kept who?
Skinner and Lindholm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they would be in the playoffs for sure. In a division spot.
I have no idea. I think Montreal is starting to falter. They've lost 3 straight or 4 straight. It's one of those. Pittsburgh is not even playing that well either. Wow, I shouldn't know the Jackets are that close. Hold up, Dan, I have to take this call.
All right, 1 second. All right, we'll pause the podcast. We'll be right back. And we're back.
Okay, so, honestly, I do think Pittsburgh gets it. I don't know Montreal gets it either. And I don't know about Carolina. I'm sketchy about them. So, if I had to choose one, it would probably be Montreal, but I don't really think they can go far in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm going to make a pretty interesting pick right here. So, I've got Montreal not making the playoffs. I've got Carolina being third in the Metropolitan. And I've got the second wild card not being Columbus. I got Philly. So I've got Columbus missing the playoffs, and I've got Philadelphia making the playoffs. Now, Philadelphia is 6 points out with no games in hand on Montreal. But I just really think they've been playing great. They're 8-1-1. Even after that win streak, they're just finding ways to win games. They're playing very well. I think Columbus is a complete disaster, especially if they trade Panarin like they should. Now, I think there could be some sort of 3-way trade with Panarin where what I would do is the Blue Jackets end up with Duchesne, maybe Nashville ends up with Panarin, Ottawa ends up with a boatload of picks and prospects. Something like that could happen. But I think if it doesn't, or if they just get younger from the trade, I don't think Columbus is making the playoffs. I think Bobrovsky has been one of the biggest busts ever this season, and I think that's really going to show when they miss the playoffs. So,
but ask any Jackets fan, or even the Jackets in general, right? Do they trust Korpisalo to be the starter next season?
No, I don't.
So who's their starter?
I have no idea. If they're smart, they'll bring in Bebo, because he should be starting in the NHL. But no, they'll probably. I would say maybe they try and get Greiss, and we'll talk about him more with the Islanders. They'll bring in someone. I think there are enough goalies where they can find a real starter. But yeah, next year they're gonna have to get a real option in net, and I think they're gonna miss the playoffs because of that. Now let's go to divisions. I think it's actually gonna end up like this. I got Washington in first place. I said third place, but I actually mean I think Carolina is going to be in second. I have the Islanders falling to third, and the reason is I don't think they can score. They have 0 20-goal scorers on their team, not one. Anders Lee leads the team with 19 goals. Now Barzal leads the team with 50 points. I mean, Ovechkin already has 40 goals, and Barzal who leads the team, has 50 points. I mean, They cannot score. The only reason they're in this is because Leonard has a 929 and Greiss has a 930 save percentage. I mean, it's unbelievable how well those two goalies have played. But that said, I don't think that they'll be able to keep up this amazing pace. If both of them drop to a 920, that would still be really good, but for any goalie standards. But that would really hurt the team. So they need to get some scoring options. I think Trotz is easily the coach of the year, no question. but I don't think that they'll finish first in their division. I think they're going to go all the way to third, just because they can't score.
Okay, so for the Metro, I have Washington first. I do think New York finished second. Once again, you said that they had no scoring, but I just think that Laner and Price's play have been unbelievable. So I do think we fall down second. Then in third place, I'm gonna actually say Pittsburgh gets at third place. I know I had them at the wild card, but after what you said about Bobrovsky, I probably kind of changed my opinion on that because also Columbus could trade Bobrovsky and Panarin or both of them like before the trade deadline, and that could hurt the team, right?
Yeah.
So I'll probably go Washington, New York, and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh, I could definitely see them even winning the division, but I still don't trust Murray in net. I mean, they gave up, or DeSmith, or Jerry. I mean, they gave up 5 goals. It was DeSmith, but 5 goals to the Rangers. And I still, even though Murray's improved lately, I still don't trust him. And yeah, so we'll see what happens there. Finally, in the Atlantic, easiest decision ever. I think Tampa wins the Atlantic division. I do think that, I guess I'm going to put Toronto finishing second and Boston finishing third. I don't think Toronto is that great of a team, actually, but I just don't think Boston's going to outperform them. And I think Toronto has a good enough offense where they can, just hang on. But if I'm the Leafs, I'm so concerned about Nylander. Now, there's, a lot of people have been in complete panic mode and saying they're not going to be able to re-sign Marner, which, no, they're going to re-sign Marner easily. It's actually pretty easy to clear cap space if you don't mind giving up assets and stuff. So Matthews, that was a good contract because they got him for less than 12. Marner, they'll be able to re-sign, but I'm worried about Nylander because they just signed him for a long-term deal, and he's just playing awful. I mean,
he has 12 points in 30 games.
12 points in 30 games, yeah. I mean, no excuse. I mean, Yes, you missed training camp. Okay, you can have a slow start. He should be back to normal now. He's not.
Yeah.
I'm concerned if I'm a Leafs fan.
And, because Janssen and Kapanen are in case this season. And, okay, I think they have around 15 known cap space after the season. Say Martin gets 10, which I think he will. And, one of Kapanen or Janssen are going to get a bit over $3 million. And you have to trade out a contract, and I don't know if Marlowe will be that guy. Sure,
he has a no movement clause.
I know, I know guys like Garner are going to free agency, but I'm telling you, it's going to be a cap crunch for this Leafs team soon.
Oh yeah, no, they'll have a cap crunch for sure. I just don't think they're going to lose Marner. I think there's people saying they're going to lose Marner. No, they're not. Yeah, I think one of Kapanen or Janssen will go. I don't think that's a disaster, even though they're both very good. But yeah, I don't think they should hope to keep both of them. They're fans. It's just not happening. But anyway, that's it for the Leafs, and that's it for that division. So, who else did you have? Do you have Boston third?
Oh yeah, I have Boston third. Yeah.
All right. So now we're gonna, just because this podcast. How long have we been going? Only 37 minutes, but still I do want to make it relatively short. So let's quickly go through 3 players on our teams who might get traded. We'll start with the Oilers.
So there's a tons of players that could be traded.
Or prospects too.
So for my 3, I have Zach Kassian, Kyle Brodziak, and one of Matt Benning or Alex Petrovic. Or maybe one that will go on waivers. Now for Kassian, no one's really noticing this, but Kassian has 9 points, I believe, in his past 15 games. It's been an unbelievable run for him so far, and I do think maybe that somehow can increase his trade value because he makes almost $2 million as a fourth liner. That's just terrible. And Edmonton, who needs to clear a cap, just free up $2 million just like that. And one taker I have Cassian is Boston. And the reason why I have Boston taking Cassian because I feel like they need another bottom six forward. I think Cassian fits the bill of the Bruins, a big, strong forward, right? So that's my take on Cassian. For Brodziak, he hasn't been doing really anything as of late. He's cheap at 1.1 as a fourth line center, but honestly, he's nothing too special. He hasn't been doing anything. I think a team like Pittsburgh or any team that wants some veteran depth down the center core, can take Brodziak maybe for a 7th. That's it. And now for Benning and Petrovic, we have too many defensemen. And, the thing about these two guys is that they make close to $2 million. Both Benning, I believe, was 1 more year after this. Petrovic is a UFA. But both of them are just a liability on the back end. Like, Benning is a good offensive. I think he's a good offensive defenseman. I think last season he had around 20-ish points. So I think that's good for a guy like Benning. But, just the fact that every single time he turns over the puck and costs us, I hate that. And we have a guy like Gravel who's a good, solid defenseman. And, when paired with Gravel, Benning tends to do a bit better. So, I feel like we can ship off Benning to a team like Toronto that's looking for a right-hand defense for that third period. And honestly, Petrovic might just go on waivers because, honestly, he's been useless here.
Yeah. All right. I definitely think those are some good points for the Sharks. Here's the players I have. First, Aaron Dell. Now, I don't think they're going to trade him because for some reason ownership loves him, but it's possible because Coronar has been playing outstanding in the AHL. Now, that said, I don't think there's any reason to make him our backup because he could still use some time to be the starter and develop. And Bebo is also still really good, so I think we would call up Bebo, trade Dell. He's on a pretty decent deal, 2 more years at just under $2 million. But I think he's terrible, but I would just love to get rid of him in any way possible. And I don't think that's actually going to happen, but, whatever. We'll see. Next guy, Tim Heed. He's a 28-year-old right defenseman on being paid league minimum, and for that price, he's very good. 5 points in only 19 games. Now, he played mostly to fill for injuries, but the D-Corps just does not have space for him. Plus, we have a much younger option at Jacob Middleton, who I think would fit in just fine. He only played 1 game this year, but I think he would be a better defenseman than Heed. And to top it off, Heed is an unrestricted free agent after this season. And since he hasn't been getting much play time, I don't think he'll want to re-sign with the Sharks. So I could see us moving him as part of a larger deal just because we know he's going to leave us for nothing. So we might as well get rid of him. Finally, Luka, I think we could trade, not Radil. I think we could trade, Lukasz Radil. And the reason is because I think the Sharks just prefer Dylan Gambrell. Radil is 28 years old. He's a center. I think he was playing in the Czech league last year, and he's been a pretty nice addition for us. But I think Gambrell is going to be the fourth line center. He's younger and I think better, so I could see Radil going as well.
And just one thing there's one piece of news today that Brandon Manning is on waivers, which basically I'm going to just trade Jacob Jula for absolutely nothing else. So just want to add that in.
Yeah. Do you see anyone claiming Manning, or do you think he clears?
I think I saw a tweet from Rick Dollywell, who works for the Vancouver Canucks, said that if Canada is out long term, which he said that there's a possibility that he could be, that the Canucks would be looking into maybe bringing in Brandon Manning, which go ahead, that he has a $2.2 million cap hit. So if you're the Canucks, don't take him, but if you do, good luck.
Yeah, so we'll see how that works, but yeah, I guess, yeah, so I don't know if he gets claimed or not, but yeah, the Drake Caggiula trade is not looking good, especially because Caggiula's looking pretty good in Chicago, and that's another reason I think they'll make the playoffs. But yeah, and we're almost done. Shaden wanted to talk about Oilers' cap situation, so we'll get into that, and then that'll wrap up the podcast. So the Oilers are not in a great cap situation, as you can probably tell. I mean, everyone loves to talk about the Lucic contract and how terrible it was, but there are also some other bad contracts they have. So, what are your thoughts?
So right now, according to Cap Friendly, they have 6.6 million cap space with Talbot. I think they had around 2.9. So no, it's still bad, but you're making room. Now the thing is with Edmonton, hold up. A couple of contracts are in the season, like were mentioned, Petrovic and Reader contracts. But I just look at this team like, what? Like, who can you really move out? Like, Russell after this season has another 2 years at $4 million. Like, who bites on that? And Costin will be starting his new extension, and ever since he signed that extension, fun fact, he hasn't won a game yet. So that's nice. Edmonton could maybe go out in free agency, find some bottom six guys, but I don't see it. The cap they have, even if it goes up to 83 mil, which I think Gary Bettman projected that to be, which is a huge increase. But you're stuck with guys like Lucic and maybe even Gagne with those terrible deals. Now, the thing is, I calculated math the other night to be ready for this. If you do trade guys like Reader, which I don't think will happen, but let's just say you trade guys like Cassian, Brodziak, let's go with Petrovic, Benning. That frees up around 7 mil cap, and you get picks and prospects back, and just like that, you have 15 mil cap. Now it won't be that easy, of course, because some of these players are probably AHL caliber, but I don't think it'll be as bad as people think. Honestly, no one thought we could get rid of Spooner. We did. The only unmovable contract I see on this roster is Lucic because, for Russell, yeah, he's really overpaid for $4 million, but, I look at, I look at the team like the Coyotes, right?
Yeah.
Not a good budget team, but, with all of the injuries they had, like, they might want another veteran defenseman. 2 years of $4 million, we probably need to add a prospect and maybe a pick to offload the contract, but I wouldn't think Russell would be that hard to move. Sekera, it really depends how he plays while we're returning from injury, but, Lucic, even if you retain half his cap, and you're not going to get much back, so, I don't think it'll be as bad as people think. It's going to be an interesting offseason for sure for Edmonton, because I think that half that management was actually fired. Like the scouts, maybe not the owner, but like the general managers, the amateur scouts, the coaches. It's not a good organization. It's toxic in there, as you told me the other day, right? So, this is probably one of the main reasons why players don't like to come to Edmonton. And, you have guys like Kevin Lowe and Craig Tabash acting like the old boys club, making wrong decisions of, for some reason, I have a feeling that they had input on the Manning trades, the Petrovic trades, the Spooner trade, the Hall trade, get rid of that old culture and start fresh. It works for some teams. I don't think it really works with the Flyers and Paul Holmgren. But, Ron Hextall wasn't that bad of a GM. Patrick Waugh, I feel like, is a way better coach than Jared Bednar. And Joe Sakic is a good GM. Sometimes it does work. But the thing is, Edmonton has been doing this for the past 15 years. And in the past 15 years, they've only made the playoffs twice. And now this season, it'll be their 12th time in the past 13 years. Get rid of that management staff, and it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be an interesting offseason for sure, Trent.
I remember the offseason after Edmonton made the playoffs and beat the Sharks in round one. every single prediction video I saw pretty much had them not only making the playoffs, I saw a lot of them making the Cup Finals. Probably the most popular Cup Final prediction that I saw was Oilers versus Penguins. And they were in such a good spot, and if I had shown people a picture of two teams, I wouldn't have said who they are. One with the Sharks record, one with the Oilers record, and said, which one do you think is the Oilers, which do you think is the Sharks? I'm pretty sure everyone would have said, oh yeah, the Sharks, they're old, they need to rebuild, blah, 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 they'll be in last or close to last. And the Oilers, they're young, they got McDavid, they'll be hyped. So, after that season, the fact that they only went down, it just makes no sense, And it's just really frustrating, for their fans that they have to deal with this just incompetence. I personally think that McDavid is not only the best player in the league right now, I think he's the best player that's ever played because I don't think the competition that he's facing now, I think the competition he's facing now is harder than any other competition all the other greats, Gretzky, Lemieux, whatever, faced. And defense is harder, goalies are better. So the fact that they're wasting the talents of the best players ever played is just really unfair. But one silver lining is at least Puljujarvi will probably take a bridge deal, so that should help somewhat. But yeah, it's frustrating, and we'll see what happens from here. And the crazy thing is, even after this complete disaster of a season, they could still technically make the playoffs, and it wouldn't be that shocking.
But now I just realized this. I think I posted this on my Instagram the other night.
Yeah, I saw it.
Edmonton is 4 points away from last place in the league, with the best player in the world. Think about that for a sec. But you have guys like Draisaitl, which I said millions of times, I'm not a huge fan of him.
Me neither.
You have guys like Nuge, and you have a couple good defensemen in Oscar Klefbom and Darnell Nurse. This should not be a bottom 5 team, not even in the bottom 10. This team shouldn't even be in a wildcard consideration. These guys should be competing for the top.
They should be where the Flames are.
Exactly. And I don't know what's wrong with this team. And it goes back to Chiarelli. And I believe it's going to be a couple of days from now where it's going to be exactly 1 month since Chiarelli got fired, which thank God he did. And, I think right now Keith Kresge is doing an okay job. He shouldn't be the general manager, no question. But, right now, I just don't know what's going to happen. And it's a mess of an organization, and I'm surprised at how long this fan base is keeping up this team.
And
because this happened because look what happened to Chicago in the early days. They had terrible attendance. MDS still sold out every single game since I believe 1999. That's dedication right there. And we just got a new building, and there's been a couple of jerseys on the ice. The fan base is going to put on this team soon, and next season you have to make the playoffs, because otherwise no one's going to go to your games.
Yeah, I wouldn't the fact that they sell out all their games is amazing. If they had attendance like the Panthers do, I would not blame them. I don't blame Panthers fans either, by the way, but I would not blame them whatsoever. But, at least there is promise, with the Condors doing so well, maybe some of their players come up and do something. But, maybe it's time that I remember that the coach of the Condors was Todd McClellan's assistant. I remember him from San Jose. Maybe he would be a good next Oilers coach, I think you mentioned Patrick Roy. He's currently coaching the Quebec Reinparts in the QMJHL. Maybe he would be an interesting hire. But I think that everyone thought that McDavid would be like Crosby, where he wins cups early and in his prime. He could end up like Ovechkin, and I would hate for this to happen, but it just takes him forever to win his first cup. And we'll just or maybe Yzerman, We'll see how it ends up turning out.
I'll just end it off like this. I think Woodcroft was McClellan's assistant. I believe he ran the power play, and it was a top 5 power play. But I just didn't really like his coaching style. He's in the AHL, but I would leave Will from the AHL, especially since the Condors are doing that well. I would look for Edmonton to look, outside the organization. I don't think they should hire a guy like Haxel, but with Quenneville taking a job here, he's Canadian and he has a chance to coach the best player in the world. It wouldn't be able to question that Quenneville would come here. Then for the GMs, there's been a couple candidates like two have really stood out in Kelly McCrimmon, who built the Vegas Golden Knights while Hope McPhee, and Mark Hunter. Two of those guys would be excellent GM candidates for the Oilers, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I definitely think that could happen. Especially, I like the idea of Quenneville. We'll see how it happens. All right, that's going to do it for this podcast. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to check out my Instagram page for Sharks coverage, Sharks Source. Make sure to check out Shaden's Instagram. He covers the Oilers and some general NHL news as well. And that's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to be ready for our next podcast. We're probably going to do something for the trade deadline. Maybe not live coverage because unfortunately I have classes, but maybe a preview or a reaction to it. We'll see what happens. But yeah, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.